The Gucci Glock is dead, replaced by the 2011, specifically, in my opinion, by the rise of budget 27s, which the Springfield Prodigy was basically the first in that market space, and many have followed. Now stick with me here because I know that's a bold claim to say that Gucci Glocks are dead, but I do believe that the budget 2011 is the new Gucci Glock. Now, the reason why, there's many reasons why, but Glock is a platform at this point. You know, the Gen 3 Glock patent expired and everybody makes a Glock clone. And guns, one of the most fun things about it, at least in my opinion, is customizing, upgrading, changing them, making them exactly what you want. And the Gucci Glock market has been here for a long time now. Think of the Roland Special. Think of what people do to Glocks and Glock Clones. Stippled grips, slide cuts, optics cuts, comps, all of these things to make a Glock better than a Glock. You know, aftermarket triggers, although you can only get a Glock trigger so good. But with the rise of budget 2011s, well, the 2011 or double stack 1911 has now become a platform as well, with an entire cottage industry that has sprung up to make these things really incredible pistols. This thing is far from Gucci. This is a PSA dagger, but we're going to use it as an example here of a Glock clone. This is a Gen 3 Glock 19 clone. And immediately when I got this, you know, for one thing, ordered it already with cuts in the slide, optic cut, threaded barrel, and I have been running the Resilient Ramblin' Man suppressor on it. Actually runs great with it. Before that, it had a compensator on it. This is where we're going to get into this. I changed out the trigger. I changed out the mag release. All of these things that you can do to a Glock because, like I said in the intro, Glock has become a platform now, like an AR-15, where there is just tons of aftermarket support as far as products and services to make your basic Glock into something that you really enjoy. But at the end of the day, it is still just a Glock. And why I think that the 2011 has replaced the Gucci Glock is because you can take a budget 2011 and really make it into something very special. Now, the Springfield Prodigy, I believe, was the first to start this trend. This gun came out a couple years ago, and when it did, I was very excited. I had always wanted a staccato, but at the time, I could not afford a staccato, and many people feel that way. And I'm by no means saying that the staccato is the ultimate 2011, because staccato is really the baseline where good 2011s start. But the Prodigy came out at a price point that was half of like a staccato P. In fact, a little bit less than half. And that already included an optics cut, the agency optics system. The gun had a lot of problems. Now, mine didn't. I've got about 2,500 rounds on this gun, pretty much flawless. This thing has been actually as reliable as any of my striker fired guns, which is pretty sweet, both in its stock configuration and after I upgraded a lot of parts to it. What I've got here is a EAA 2311 Match X. And just like we were talking about with the Gucci Glock, with stippled grips, optics cuts, slide cuts, comps, well, what do we have here now? We have an aftermarket grip. This is the Cosin Arms aluminum 2011 grip. We've got an optics cut, we've got slide cuts, we've got comps, we've got ports, we've got Cerakote, we've got all of the stuff that people would do to a Gucci Glock. But in my opinion, with the 2011 platform, you get a lot more out of those upgrades. When I said that you could do all this stuff to a Glock, but at the end of the day, it is still just a Glock, I do kind of mean that. There's not a whole lot that you could do with the recoil system. Yes, you could change springs, but a Glock, in order to run, kind of, you know, has to have a certain high poundage as far as your recoil spring weight. Even the best aftermarket Glock triggers are still Glock triggers, and they're not great. But when it comes to a 2011, you could turn something pretty budget, pretty basic into something incredible. This video is sponsored by Venice AI. Do you ever wonder what ChatGPT does with your conversations? We all know that our phones, Alexa, everything like that, listens to our conversations and then advertises to us based on what we say. Well, what else are these things doing with our personal information? They're selling it to third parties, including governments. In fact, the director of the NSA, the former director, is now sitting on the board of ChatGPT, which is why I'm using Venice AI. Venice AI is an AI software. It uses open source software that you don't have to download. It goes straight to your web browser, but the biggest thing is that it's private and permissionless. And so you don't have to worry about them selling your information to anybody else, which is kind of why it's a big deal to me. I like privacy, even though I show everything that I do on a YouTube channel. My daughter, she's 13. She uses AI for all kinds of things these days. She's been writing stories with it. She's been making music with it. It is incredible what you can do with AI. It's a very powerful tool, but keep your privacy while you use it with Venice AI. I like the Pro plan personally. It just gives you a lot more that you can do, and you can get a 20% off on your Pro plan if you sign up using my link. That is venice.ai/sawtooth-tactical. Use that code to get 20% off. The code is sawtooth-tactical. Now the thing about a Gucci Glock is you take a $600 gun, you put some money into it, you put some time or money or a combination of both, and you come out with something that is customized for you. Stippled grips are a big one. People are doing comps. A lot of people now, of course, using the Radian Ramjet and Afterburner combo, which is a very effective compensator. But you're still compensating for that Glock recoil, which of course isn't bad. Most people are doing these to 9mm guns. Glocks are very controllable guns, pretty easy to shoot, but they don't compare to the way that a 2011 shoots. In fact, not even close. I don't care who you are, come out to Southern Idaho, shoot one of these guns with me, and tell me that your Glock shoots better. You're lying. It's just not true. And I've shot some really nice Gucci Glocks. And yes, they're nice. They're really nice to look at. You get better grip texture. You get, less recoil with, a Radian Ramjet on it or something like that. Sweet. But, racking the slide still feels like a Glock. Even the best aftermarket Glock triggers are not really great just because of the way that the fire control system is designed in a Glock. You have to be able to pull that striker back. And now, yes, you can use, like this Timney, basically turns it into a pre-cocked striker gun, makes the trigger better, but it does not compare to a 2011 trigger, even a bad 2011 trigger. Both of these guns, when I got them, had triggers that would put any Glock to shame. But at this point, I mean, they're ridiculous. This Prodigy here has a 2.4 pound trigger. That's your take up. I mean, you can't hardly even see it move when it goes to break. Reset, break. 2311 Match X trigger here is at 3.5 pounds. Similar take up, actually even less. A little bit more defined wall and a crisper break, but about a pound heavier than the Prodigy. Reset, break, it's ridiculous. Now besides that, there's a lot of other stuff you can do to these that you just can't do to Glocks. And it's because these have become, like I said, a platform now. And so there is a lot of aftermarket support. I have found that you can take any cheap 2011, and if you put EGW parts in it and an Atlas trigger and a lighter recoil spring and a lighter mainspring, you end up with something pretty awesome. And then you can do even more to it than that. But let's take this one first, because this one is not nearly as crazy with the upgrades as the 2311 is, but it is a totally different gun than it was when I bought it. So the Prodigy, when I bought it, actually shot really well already. I would say even stock, better than any Glock that I've ever owned. Now, I got lucky. I got a really reliable one. Some people haven't, but you can make these things reliable. And we'll talk about that when we get into this one in just a minute. After I put 1,000 rounds through it, bone stock, I started the upgrade process. Now, all EGW internals, meaning the ignition kit, the sear, the mainspring's got a 17-pound mainspring, the sear spring, the disconnector, the hammer, all of the internal parts are now EGW machined parts. No MIM, metal injection molded parts in this thing anymore. And then an Atlas medium flat face trigger, just because I like flat triggers. Also did an 8-pound recoil spring and a Wilson Combat recoil buffer in this thing. And the slide is like glass on glass smooth, very, very light. And then the trigger is just absolutely incredible. And then of course, we also put different safeties on here because I didn't really like the safety that was on it from the factory. In fact, that was the one major shitty part about this gun was the safety. EGW safety, and I hand fit it myself. It was not difficult. So yes, with a Gucci Glock, everything is pretty much going to be drop in. With the 1911, 2011, that's not necessarily true, but it kind of is. The high-end 2011s, yes, you know, like a Nighthawk, is an all hand-fit gun. One gun, one gunsmith. And they're very expensive, and you wait for them to get that kind of hand-fit quality. But the EGW ignition kit is mostly drop-in for the most part. You might have to do some minor fitting. With the safety, you'll definitely have to fit it, but it was not difficult. Used a file, took my time, and it turned out really, really good. I've also got an EGW slide stop here. I've got a keyed reverse plug, and I've got an EGW magwell. You're seeing a theme here, EGW, Evolution Gunworks. I've used their parts like crazy in both of these guns, and they've turned them into much, much better guns. This thing recoils less than it did when I bought it due to the 8-pound recoil spring and buffer, and actually due to the 17-pound mainspring, because there is, when the slide is reciprocating, there's less force on the hammer that the slide has to overcome to reset that. The recoil on this thing for a 4¼ inch non-comped gun is really nice. And that, plus the really light crisp trigger, makes a gun that you can shoot very, very fast and very accurate. Every time I shoot this, I feel like a better shooter than I do if I go out and shoot any striker-fired gun. And then there's the 2311 Match X here. EAA Gerson. This is a Turkish clone of a Staccato XC. Now, why do I say it's a clone of a Staccato XC? Well, because it has this integrated compensator, one-piece barrel with the comp here. That's why I bought this gun. This was even cheaper than the Prodigy. The Prodigy is an American gun. This is a Turkish gun. They're able to make clones of the most popular guns in the world in Turkey for a lot cheaper. This is a Turkish MP5 clone, and I've been extremely happy with it. So this gun comes with the comp already in it. It comes with these slide cuts. It actually came with an optics cut, but I got that changed. And, you know, it was a pretty cool gun from out of the box, from the factory. But it did have its reliability issues. The first 200 rounds through it, I did have a handful of failures, I think 5 in 200 rounds. To me, that is significant, considering in like 2,500 rounds at the Prodigy, I haven't had that many malfunctions. It was oversprung in a major way from the factory. If I remember right, I think it had a 14-pound recoil spring, and it definitely didn't need that. The very first thing I did was change it out to an 8-pound Staccato recoil spring, Staccato XC recoil spring specifically because of the type of gun it is. I ordered that from Staccato. Used another one of those Wilson Combat shock buffs in here, like I have in this gun. And that helped quite a bit with the recoil and with the reliability. The second time I took it out after changing those things out, it actually made quite a big difference. There were some other little bit of issues. The pick rail here, I'm not sure if it's just out of spec or just, you know, where they put the slots in it. But in order for me to mount the X300 where I want it, which is where it is now, I did have to modify the key in the mounting part of the X300 a little bit to make it fit. Otherwise, I would have to have it sticking way out, which is kind of not what you want on a full-size gun like this. But the original gun even came with a magwell, although totally different grip and magwell than what's on it now. I sent this thing off to Cosent Arms, and for you basically double the price of the gun. It's a $1,000 gun, $1,200 at Cosent Arms, and then you've got a really, really incredible custom gun for about the price of a stock Staccato P. Now, I know a lot of you guys are going to be like, why wouldn't you just spend that same amount of money on a Staccato P? Different strokes for different folks. I like customizing stuff, and if you shoot this side by side with the Staccato P, this shoots better. It's got a better trigger, and it recoils a hell of a lot less, making it faster to shoot. And that's due to this giant comp on the front, but also ports in the barrel. 3 inline ports. I've got a custom Cerakote job that you don't get on a Staccato P for that money. And I've got an aluminum magwell. This is the Cosent Arms aluminum magwell. And this thing is sweet. It has got incredible texture on the back strap, the front strap, the sides. This thing does not move in your hand, whether your hands are wet, sweaty, whatever. It is a totally solid grip. Aluminum magwell there, which makes reloads very easy. And then the EGW ignition kit. The same internal parts that I put in this Prodigy are in this gun. The same Atlas flat face trigger, and it totally changes the gun. It went from a decent, you know, budget 2011 to something really, really good. And I know this because yesterday I was up at a friend's range, and he has a $6,000 Nighthawk, and that thing is a sweet gun. I shot this next to his Nighthawk all day, and this gun competes. Now his Nighthawk, he doesn't have one with a component. It's not the Sandhawk or the TRS comp, but it is a Nighthawk. This thing is amazing. And you can do all that with a budget 2011 because it leaves money on the table for upgrades to make it exactly what you want. And that's why I say that this has replaced the Gucci Glock. In my opinion, this, for one, it's a much better looking gun than a Glock. Even this Turkish clone, especially with the Cerakote, with the comp, with the aluminum grip module, everything that you see here, I think is pretty damn sweet. And you know what? It shoots much better. I promise you, like literally, come shoot with me. This shoots better than any Glock. Any Glock. I feel confident saying that. I was doing build drills yesterday with this, and I am by no means like any kind of pro level shooter or anything like that. I'm just a guy that likes to shoot a lot. And you can shoot this as fast as you can pull the trigger. The recoil, it returns to 0, and every time that dot comes back on my target, pull the trigger, and I can basically shoot it as fast as I can pull that trigger. The dot never leaves the window because it recoils so little. There's so little muzzle rise with the ports and the comp. I mean, it's just amazing. And I can't believe I'm saying this about a Turkish clone, a Turkish cheap 2011, but with the upgrades and the customization that's put into this, and I gotta thank Greg at Cosent Arms for doing this. He made this gun into something absolutely amazing. And while you can turn a Glock into something really cool by doing all the stuff we talked about earlier, it still pretty much shoots like a Glock. These are not the same way. By changing out the internals, by porting it, by doing these things that we've talked about in this video, you can make a gun that makes you feel so confident in your shooting abilities that you have so much fun when you're shooting. Both of these guns just put an absolute smile on my face when I'm out shooting. And these are budget 2011s. Now, yes, each of them is multiple thousands of dollars at this point with everything that I have into them. But they're worth it, at least in my opinion. And they're a lot less than a full custom expensive 2011, but they're customized to exactly what I want. And that's why I think that the Gucci Glock is dead and has been replaced by the budget 2011. But let me know what you guys think. There are a lot of people that are into the budget 2011 game now. The Springfield Prodigy, like I said, I think started it all. And with its reliability issues that many of the factory guns had, especially when it was first released, people started changing parts and doing things to them. And now there's a whole industry just for customizing and upgrading these things. And it's a platform. The same parts that work in this gun work in this gun. 1911, 2011 parts. Just like a Glock, where there's all kinds of companies that make parts that work in Glocks. All kinds of companies that make parts that work in AR-15s. That's why you can build your own ARs. Well, at this point, there's tons of companies that make parts for the 2011 or 1911 platform. And what you can do with them is just incredible. And I think that you can do more with them than you can with like a Gucci Glock. I mean, with a Glock, you can stipple the grip. Well, a 2011 is modular. You can totally change out the grip like we did on this one. You know, because the serialized part is just this frame up here, not the whole grip. There's just so much you can do with these, and it's so satisfying to put together a gun that makes you feel so good when you're shooting it. But I want to know what you guys think. Let me know down in the comments. Am I totally crazy for this claim? I've just been thinking about it a lot lately, and there was a time when I really wanted to put together a Gucci Glock. That was kind of what the PSA dagger build was when I first started this channel. Gucci Glock on a budget, I called it. These are way more fun to upgrade and customize. You can do so much more with them, and it's actually effective. The changes that you make to them actually make significant changes in the way that the guns shoot, handle, in their, reliability, all of that stuff. And to me, I just think it's really cool. I freaking love them. But let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Agree or disagree. I would love to hear from you guys. If you enjoyed this video, please give me a like. Make sure you comment. Make sure you subscribe. YouTube doesn't monetize any of my videos anymore, so that stuff really helps. And from Sawtooth Tactical, stay strapped or get clapped.